What's up everyone, OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the dominance of Fire Emblem Three Houses in the NPD. Nintendo Switch sales are doing absolutely amazing. We also got that as well. There's a lot of stuff to get into and kind of what went down with Fire Emblem, and all the stuff that I was saying about how Fire Emblem Three Houses or Fire Emblem on the Nintendo Switch was going to be a shocking seller is definitely coming true. Stuff that I made like last year in 2018 before we even knew the official name of the game. And yeah, it's all pretty much happening because we do have the US NPD sales and things are looking very good for Fire Emblem Three Houses. So I want to talk about that and also the future of the franchise going forward because of these dominant sales. So let's go ahead and get right into it, starting off with some of the NPD reports. And the NPD is now saying that Fire Emblem Three Houses has the largest Fire Emblem launch in US history, and that is big time when it comes down to it because Fire Emblem Fates and Fire Emblem Awakening also had pretty good launches as well. So thanks to the NPD report, we finally know how Fire Emblem Three Houses performed in the United States. In July, it was the best-selling game across all platforms, and that's not including digital sales. So Fire Emblem Three Houses, as you guys all know, that game was #1 digitally for a while. It's been pretty much #1. I think it still is. I have to double check, but I know it was #1 pre-launch, just with preload sales. I know it was #1 at launch. And yeah, it's continuing to do well digitally and physically across the world, really. So the NPD also states that Fire Emblem Three Houses has secured the largest launch of a Fire Emblem game in US history. Launch month sales tripled those of the previous bestseller in a release month, Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia, which I did not know that the previous bestseller was Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia. But yeah, it tripled those sales, and that is incredible. And I'll tell you guys a number of reasons why after we finish this little blurb, why that is such an incredible feat. Fire Emblem Three Houses is already the second best selling entry in the franchise and should eventually overtake Fire Emblem Awakening. So a couple different things here packed into that little bit of information. Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia, that game launched on the install base back of the 3DS with like 70 million or something like that, because that was a Nintendo 3DS game and it launched in 2016, or was it 2017? I think it was 2017. Yeah, it launched in 2017, Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia, because that was the direct, or the Fire Emblem Direct, where they announced the Fire Emblem Switch game, they announced Fire Emblem Heroes for mobile, and then Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia. So then 2017 we got that game. So you have to think about it. The 3DS was already 70 million plus back then, and the fact that the Nintendo Switch, with its install base of less than 40 million, almost there, it's like 37 million or whatever the case is, was able to triple the sales of that game, which just goes to show you the positive momentum and hype that this game brought to users out there, to where they would be compelled enough to go out there and get the game. And this just isn't Fire Emblem fans. This is people who were new to the franchise. So many people across Twitter and people on my channel here said, yo, OJ, you convinced me to get the game. I'm absolutely loving it. This game is amazing. I've never played a Fire Emblem game before. This is my first Fire Emblem game, and I'm playing it now, and it's just really cool. I love what they did with the 3 paths and all the different characters in the game. And this is what happens when you build a game in a certain style. The way that Koei Tecmo and also, of course, Intelligent Systems built this game was they didn't focus on the highest end graphics and all that stuff like that. They did the best that they could with the available resources and time that they had, but they fleshed out the game and the story. The gameplay mechanics in Fire Emblem Three Houses is some of the best RPG mechanics that I have ever seen. Easily, like free on that one. And the story is so captivating and compelling, and there's so much content in there. When you put all that together, that's what you get. You get a game that pretty much triples up on an install base before of 70 million, tripling up on that on the Nintendo Switch. The amazing reviews and everything helped as well, but to have launch sales pretty much right behind Fire Emblem Awakening, it's pretty much already going to overtake it. There's no slowing down when it comes to Fire Emblem. We're continuing to see the game sell really well. It's hard to find in some areas because anytime they get a shipment in or stock, it gets just sold out right away. We saw that with Walmart's. I remember I went to my Walmart, they barely had any copies of the game because they were selling it for $50, so people were rushing in there and buying it like crazy. I know at my GameStop, they almost sold out of all of the copies of Fire Emblem Three Houses. When I talked to the lady afterwards, when I went to go get my new Switch, I asked her, how did Fire Emblem do? And they're like, oh man, it did really, really well. So the game is doing absolutely phenomenal across the board, and it's helping push the Nintendo Switch to new levels with the NPD, because along with this NPD report of the software sales, we also got the hardware sales as well, and the Nintendo Switch was once again the best selling system on the market, pretty much with no other system close to it here in the US. And if you look at the top 20 NPD, I'm not gonna go over everything here, but look at all the different Nintendo Switch exclusives that are littered throughout this list. Nintendo's pretty much dominating the NPD with good old-fashioned hardcore games, like good gameplay. It's not the highest end, it's not the most features, it's not all of this other stuff that gaming has kind of transformed into, and what people were trying to say that Nintendo needs to do after the failure of the Wii U, and people just ignoring the Nintendo 3DS's successes. People said that they need to copy other systems, they need to copy what other people were doing, and Nintendo said, nope, we can kind of just do this, and I think that we can be successful. And you know what? They proved everyone wrong. Just kind of like Fire Emblem is shocking people right now with the sales, and I talked about that. I talked about that and saying how this game is going to shock people because it is going to be a massive effort from Intelligent Systems on all fronts in order to get this game up and going. And the thing that I like the most about this, it really just kind of secures the future of Fire Emblem. You guys all know I made a ton of Fire Emblem content on this channel, and of course I'm going to continue to make Fire Emblem news and Fire Emblem videos. I'm really looking forward to my second playthrough and my big review that I'm going to be doing as well with the Black Eagles, and I will be doing more stuff with Golden Deer later. But I mean, like, it really just secures the future of this franchise and of this game and what they're trying to do, because now with all this revenue that's flowing in, Intelligent Systems and Nintendo already had that confidence that this was a major franchise to them. Back in 2016, they did state this is a major franchise, but now they can really take it up another step. They can really give it another notch of marketing. They can take the engine of what they had, what they did with the Dynasty Warriors engine, they can kind of modify that and make that even better and make it into its own thing. And the next Fire Emblem game that we see could be a lot better visually and even add more gameplay elements and more stuff to the table, because Fire Emblem, despite it being amazing, there's combat arts, there's battalions, there's all sorts of really cool stuff in the game. They could add more depth on top of that. They could do more things. They could bring back some mechanics that were in previous Fire Emblem games that maybe they didn't have time to implement, and they can kind of play around with it and make it its own thing in the next Fire Emblem game. So this revenue and this money and the good sales and the continued sales of the Nintendo Switch secure that Fire Emblem not only has a future, but it has a big and bright future on Nintendo Switch, and this game is delighting players around the world. So that's the thing that I'm probably most happy about. I also think that it's really cool that the return of Fire Emblem to the home consoles has had this much praise, because I think it also validates what Nintendo did with the Nintendo Switch system, because if you look at it, it really helps out the people who want the old school Fire Emblem on a home console playing on their TV. So people who want that, which there are people who've wanted that for a long time, because we haven't had it since Radiant Dawn back on the Wii, and even then Radiant Dawn, people liked it at the time, but people still felt that Path of Radiance might have been a little bit better. So the GameCube, so you're looking at fans that were really all old school saying we kind of want something to play on the TV, and then you have the new school fans who love stuff like Awakening and Fates, Shadow of Valentia. So I think that with the Nintendo Switch, you just get the best of both of them, and that's why I was so confident that Fire Emblem Three Houses was really going to do well. It was because I have trust and faith in Intelligent Systems and Nintendo to market and make an amazing game, and then I knew that it was going to draw a bunch of old school fans who played on home consoles. It was going to draw the new school fans who loved new Fire Emblem, and then it was going to gather a bunch of other people because the game was going to be that good and the Switch was going to blow up, or the Switch was blowing up in sales. So those three factors are what made me make the videos that I made back then, saying how I thought that the game was going to shock people with the sales and it was going to do a lot better than what people were thinking, because people traditionally look at Fire Emblem as a game that doesn't do that well. And when it did do well, okay, 1 million or 2 million, okay, something like that. But Fire Emblem Three Houses is tracking to do a lot better than what the previous games did. I think it's going to be pretty much minimum lifetime sales of 4 to 5 million, and that's just the minimum when it comes down to it. It could do a lot better than that, but since it's tracking better than Fates, and Fates was the previous best-selling game overall in the franchise, I think that this is really going to be something special for Nintendo going forward, and we're going to see some really cool Fire Emblem games that could increase in quality when it comes to visuals, increase in quality with more gameplay. There's even more than they can do, and this already seems like a gargantuan feat because Fire Emblem Three Houses is already so big and it's already so good with the ratings and what people like. But I still think that they're going to even top this with their next game, whatever they decide to do, whether they do a Echoes title, which if it's an Echoes title, then obviously it'd be a little bit different, right? Because they're remaking a previous game. But if they made another brand new game in the entry, I think that game is going to be absolutely nuts with what they sell and everything and how it looks and how it plays. So I think this is the start of something beautiful for the Nintendo Switch and Fire Emblem fans when it comes down to it. And I love to see a hardcore game like Fire Emblem do this well, because it shows you that people still want stuff like this. Everything doesn't have to be DLC and microtransactions and battle royale and online multiplayer. You can have a single player game sell big and still continue to do well, and people have replay value within that game. It can happen just as long as you do it the right way and you flesh out the story, content, gameplay elements. This is exactly what happens, and especially if you put it on the Switch as well. I mean, look at what's going on here. It's incredible to see. So what do you guys think about the Fire Emblem Three Houses sales here in the US NPD? Also the Nintendo Switch, in terms of its NPD sales, once again, the top system on the market pretty much all the way dating back since last year, November. It's been #1, so more than half a year now. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Go and check out the links in the description below. We got Facebook and Twitter. Go ahead and give us a like and a follow on our social media. Hit that like button if you did like this video. Let me know you guys want more content like this going forward in the future. And subscribe to PlayerEssence for this RPG, Japanese, and Nintendo gaming news. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.